Nick Cucci here, Executive Director of the New York chapter of the Recording Academy. I hope everyone is healthy and safe and wearing a mask. I'm excited to be here today to announce our new series, Conversations. This series will focus and introduce people and organizations making a difference in our chapter area. Conversations will focus on the history, industry, and resources for and provided by our guests. Join us here on Facebook each month to watch the latest episode and interact with your fellow members. Today's conversation is with Katie Wagner, Executive Director of the Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts organization. Leading the talk today is Neeta Ragoowansi, co-founder and CEO of the National Performing Arts Exchange, global co-chair of Women in Music, former New York chapter board governor, and a good friend. So please, everyone, welcome Katie and Neeta and enjoy the program. Neeta, take it away.
Thank you so much, Nick. And hi, everyone. I am Neeta Ragoowansi, and welcome to this conversation on Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. I would like to introduce you to the fabulous Katie Wagner. And let's just tell you a little bit about Katie. Katie is the Executive Director of Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts provides legal and education services to the New York arts community. She is responsible for developing VLA's legal services, education, and advocacy programming, and facilitating pro bono legal representation for hundreds of artists and arts and cultural organizations in need each year. Prior to joining VLA, Katie was Vice President and Counsel for the NMPA, the National Music Publishers Association, which is the leading trade association representing the interests of music publishers in the United States. Katie served as legal advisor for the litigation and policy initiatives of the association. And she also focused on NMPA's overall litigation efforts and related licensing offerings. Katie began her legal career in private practice, specializing in intellectual property and complex business transaction proceedings. So welcome, Katie. It is such a pleasure to have you here, and I'm very excited for our audience to hear what Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts is all about. So can you tell us, what is VLA?
Well, thank you, Neeta. Thank you for having me and for the Recording Academy. We're very thrilled to get the word out about VLA. We're constantly trying to make sure that people know that we exist. And what is VLA? We are a nonprofit organization. We've been around for over 50 years, I think about 52 now. And we're the first organization of our kind, a model for many organizations you may have heard about throughout the United States and in Europe. We serve creatives of all arts disciplines, and we provide legal services, legal education, advocacy to the arts community. While we serve all arts disciplines, we see the most cases in music, documentary film, and visual arts. The matters that we see, it's anything that's arts related, so anything related to your work. In the case of music, we see a lot of contract drafting, such as band agreements and collaboration agreements, copyright matters, of course, disputes, and setting up for-profit and nonprofit companies. Many of you may know that even as you exist without any corporate form, you are a company, so or a business, I would say. And we help you navigate those things.
Let's get into some of the details, because I think that will help our audience understand when they may need a VLA in their lives. So go for it.
Okay, great. Well, our legal services program offers many ways to get legal assistance. The first is the most straightforward and quickest. It's a legal consultation in VLA's offices. Right now, of course, that's virtual, but you would spend 45 minutes with one of our attorneys and get legal advice that you need. This usually lends itself to something like contract reviews. What's in my contract? Explain to me what this means. Does this affect me? Can I get this out of the contract? And we try to give you a fair assessment based on your experience and what you're seeking to do. Then we have legal clinics, similar to the consultation, but advice comes from our partner law firm attorneys. So we have clinics several times a month. I think now we're actually doing it more often because we're remote. And you meet with a group of attorneys from one of our partner law firms, and they give you all of their wisdom and advice on a matter. For those cases where we talk to you or you're at a clinic and it seems that you need additional long-term legal services, someone to help you draft a contract, handle a dispute, set up a company, then we have long-term placements for free legal services with our partner law firms. And I think we'll talk a little bit later in detail about how you can get those services. And those placements are subject to income eligibility. We also offer education workshops and classes, which has been a very popular thing now that we've been all online. It's now Zoom oriented. And we offer both general classes, so those just on what is a contract, what is copyright, how does it affect me, corporate formation, should I form a company, what's a nonprofit? And then we also have discipline-specific classes such as legal issues and music. And we offer those with experts from, Neeta, I think we're going to have to get you on to teach one of those classes.
I'm there. Count me in.
You do tap into our legal community and experts so that you're getting the most recent and direct advice that we can give you on your area or on the areas of expertise that we're offering the class. And then the last area has become very prevalent right now, which is sort of a time-sensitive issues that come up for our community. And the COVID shutdown has caused a lot of distress for many people, and definitely many people in our arts community. And so we've been offering free classes that are still resident online on our website, VLANY.org, where you can get classes on how to file unemployment assistance, what's CARES Act funding about, what is how does it affect your immigration status? So those are things that we always are looking for to help with when there is some sort of event that presents itself.
Great. Well, Katie, actually, let's talk about, because I heard about your COVID music initiative, which sounds great. So can you tell us a little bit more about that for our musicians here, our music audience?
Well, as you mentioned, music has a big place in my heart. So, we recognized very early on that the COVID shutdown policies were going to have a great effect on the music industry. And so we joined forces with the California Lawyers for the Arts and the Arts and Business Council of Nashville's VLA program, both, are areas that have many musicians, not just musicians, but the entire music industry. We want to make sure that the sound engineers or whoever else, session recording, artists are getting help that they need. And so we set up a variety from our original services. But what we are doing is we're providing absolutely free, no membership required, expedited, meaning we're putting you through our screening process as quickly as possible. And then we're placing you immediately with law firms who have agreed to take these cases on an expedited basis. Another great part of this program is that we know that many people in the music industry have been affected by their incomes going away, right? So we have a lot of people who had very, strong careers and great income, last year. And normally we look to last year and we say, okay, can we help you? Because we're a nonprofit and we do look towards, helping people who are in need. And so what we realized is that there were many people who went from like 100 to 0. And in that instance, we've had the agreement with our law firm partners that we will look at your current situation. So if you have no work going on right now and you need help filing for unemployment assistance, we can help you and we can place you.
That's amazing, yeah, because, we have a lot in our New York community. We have a, big Broadway community, a lot of musicians who are in the pit orchestras who were doing great last year, right? And then this happened, and our, where Broadway is dark, and if they have to show income level in order to get free or pro bono legal services, it's a bit challenging. And so that's great. So you are taking into consideration their current situation.
Absolutely.
That's really fabulous to hear. Wonderful.
And I would say too, and this is really about all of our services, and that is we're a nonprofit and we're here to help. And if there's any type of fee or concern about financial need, let us know. We work with you, and we do our best to get you every type of legal service that we can.
Wonderful. Well, speaking of nonprofits, we have a question from our Facebook audience, which is about nonprofits. Can you talk a little about not just what you do for nonprofits, but why is it important for a creative to potentially consider being a nonprofit? What sort of situations might come up for them, and that they might be interested then in the counseling that you all can offer for a nonprofit?
Absolutely. Well, nonprofits, forming them, which I'll talk about in a minute, is a fairly complex process and a multi-step process to form a nonprofit. But let's start with, what is a nonprofit? And a nonprofit, really, its purpose is to serve the public interest in an area. In this case, it would be, the musical work that one is offering, whether it's in an orchestra or some sort of Broadway show or shows, or so you're doing it for the public interest. But I think most people, when they're forming it, think of this, and that is we can raise money, right? A key feature of nonprofits that other companies don't have is that you're able to fundraise from individuals and offer them a tax deduction. And you can get money from foundations and government entities, which would otherwise not provide grants to your organization. And you must have a nonprofit status that shows that you are in the public interest and recognized by the federal and state government as such. And the funds, they support the mission of the organization, and again, will relate to the creative's work.
But there is a couple of, because the donation fundraising aspect of it is tremendous. And having been involved with quite a few nonprofits, I think it's a tremendous way to form an entity around the pursuit of or the initiative that's being done, and certainly with arts, a 501c3 nonprofit is a cultural or educational or charitable organization. And so if you have those sort of traits to the work that you're doing, it can be tremendous for fundraising. But there's a catch, isn't there? There's something about control that you give up. If you want to talk about that, Katie.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that people don't understand. When they're creating an organization and it's their work that's at issue, it's their baby, right? And in a nonprofit, it is for the public interest, and no one owns it. There is no owner. So if you are founding a 501c3, you are not considered the owner. And you must be directed by a board of directors, and they make decisions, and their decisions are up to and including taking you out of the organization. So we're moving you from control of the organization. And so that's something significant to think about when you are, one, if you do decide to do it, who you choose to be on your board of directors, but two, is that really what you're looking to do? As well, it's a nonprofit. What does that mean? That means that all of the money is going back into the business. So they're not going to be paying dividends to you. You're not going to be able to set your salary. Your salary has to be equivalent to other nonprofits of a similar sort. And so, that is something to think about in terms of compensation. And finally, and I think most importantly for creatives, is the control of the intellectual property. So,
the copyrights, quite important to the creators.
The creators. So, if you, assign yourself as artistic director and you're creating whatever the artwork is that you're doing under the guise of the nonprofit, and you're an employee and you're receiving a salary for that intellectual property belongs to the nonprofit. So you can imagine a scenario where you've created the work and you think you have control over it, but remember the board of directors has control over it, and you can be separated from your intellectual property because it's technically, or not even technically, it is the nonprofit's property.
That's right. So can we jump into the part about how to the VLA assists nonprofits, but also just sort of talk about that onboarding process, about how one applies. And so, you know, start with the nonprofits, and if you're thinking about that, but then go into the individual as well, if you would.
I'm going to be talking for a while now.
Okay.
So how do we assist nonprofits? Nonprofits, when we were first formed, our first client was Twyla Tharp, and we created her dance company, and so that she could raise money, so that she could pay her dancers. It was in 1969, and nonprofit organizations were really just coming to the forefront. And I think if you look at a lot of our arts and cultural organizations, they were created in 1969, and that there's a reason for that. And so, you know, that was one of the primary things that we worked on when we first started. And so we have a very comprehensive program around nonprofits. We help not only form the nonprofit with the assistance of course, of our volunteer attorneys, but also provide continued assistance to all of our arts nonprofits that are currently existing. So, you know, I guess let's start with the last first, and that is, you have HR questions, you have intellectual property questions, you need a contract drafted, and you're a nonprofit entity. We will help because it's of the public interest. We don't have the same financial constraints that we do for individuals in terms of how we can help them. We can help any public interest nonprofit. So we can provide you with that legal assistance up to and including placing you with a law firm for those services. But then we also help you form a nonprofit. I think as you've gathered from our conversation, as I know you know, nonprofit law is quite involved and has a lot of responsibilities related to creating and continuing to operate a nonprofit. So our first step is that we offer a workshop on nonprofits that explains to you exactly what you're getting yourself into, and to help you decide if it really is the correct corporate form for you. And so we go into not only some of the things I've talked about earlier, but also, you know, what are your fiduciary responsibilities? What is going to happen in the process? How many steps do I have to take? What information am I going to have to provide to meet the requirements? Because the first step that we do, the first thing you do is you're going to have to form a company, and then you're going to have to create, or you're going to have to seek the status of 501c3 from the federal government, which makes you a tax-exempt organization. And then you must get your state tax-exempt status, which is wonderful because then you can not pay any sales tax and those sorts of things. So that's the first step, is to really learn about, from our educational workshop, about what you're getting yourself into. And then the second thing we do is we meet with you individually. So those individual consultations that I was talking about in our office, we will meet with you and we will make sure you've done what we call your homework. There's several pieces of information that you need to have thought through before we even start the process. And we go through those with you. We answer any questions you may have that come out of the workshop, and get you ready to be placed with an attorney. And then we place you with a law firm. It's very popular to set up nonprofits. Our law firms really enjoy doing it, and they will go through that multi-step process that I mentioned about setting up the company and applying for tax-exempt status. So that is the program that we offer, and which you can tell it's something that I think is a little daunting to take on by yourself, and something that our lawyers can do routinely.
Right. So how does someone apply, an individual, what have you, apply for VLA's assistance? What's that process look like?
Well, the process is, of course, more and more online, and certainly right now. You can call into our offices when we're there, but right now everything for VLA is remote. We have online questionnaire that can be filled out. So you can go to VLANY.org and follow the prompts until you get to whatever you're into. Are you an individual? Are you a company? And then we'll ask you a series of questions, not only about the substantive matter, so that we make sure that we can help you, that it's something that's arts related, that is ready to be given legal assistance. Sometimes things are not fully formed or aren't arts related. In that instance, again, as I said earlier, we are here to help. So if it isn't, then we will make sure that you get to the appropriate entity that can help you. In New York, we're very blessed to have so many nonprofit organizations that can help people with their legal issues.
Right. Sorry, if I may. I think the tough part for some people is the financial eligibility, and I'm assuming, I mean, with the music COVID program, it looks like, you know, it's a little bit easier for folks who are having rough times right now and have financial hardship this year. But also, if you don't really meet the financial eligibility requirements, does VLA offer other services nonetheless?
Absolutely. So, you know, I mentioned the 3 different ways that we primarily offer the legal services. The consultations in our office and the legal clinics are open to all members. So you don't have to have, you can make as much money as you want and come into us and sit down with us, and we'll go through your agreement with you and explain what it is. Or another thing that I think something is that is interesting for bands in particular. You know, maybe you have a band agreement that you want us to go through and set up for you so that you can actually present it to the different venues that you're going to work with. You know, that puts you on a better footing. So things like that can be accessed by all of our members. So it's just the long-term placement that has the financial restriction on it. And it's really, if it was up to me, there would be none, but we are a nonprofit. And so part of that, of the public interest, is that we're helping artists in need, and that means financial need. And then the law firm similarly, you know, although in New York it seems almost impossible, they don't want to be replacing paying customers or paying clients with someone that needs help. So those are really the financial considerations.
Great. And so a lot of our members are outside of New York City, are from Boston area, New England, all over, including, you know, some folks from outside the United States internationally. Can you just sort of tell us about, you know, are there other VLAs? And if you are international, but you're working with somebody in New York and you have a contract dispute, you know, how does that all work?
Absolutely. So in New York, our requirement is that you have what's called a nexus to New York. So you can be a resident of New York. Your contract can have a legal jurisdiction clause that says New York is governing the contract, whatever the case may be. So if, say, in your example, if there's someone who's abroad, but they're entering into a contract with someone who's in New York, or that has New York as the law, then we can help you. If it's outside of our jurisdiction, outside of New York, we also do help people in Connecticut and New Jersey to the extent that we can identify attorneys who are licensed in Connecticut and New Jersey. As you know, licensure for law degree, for law practice is state, designated by the state. So we're lucky enough to have enough New Jersey and Connecticut licensed folks to help us. But then you go outside there. And I mentioned earlier that we have it's a loose network. We're not formally affiliated, but we do have a very loose network of nonprofit VLA type organizations around the country. In Boston, you mentioned, there's the Arts and Business Council of Boston, and they have a VLA program that's very strong, has been around for a long time. Great work. As I mentioned, California, Nashville, there's a strong organization in Georgia. There's a great organization in Louisiana. So I'm trying to think of some of the more music-oriented states, but we do have that resource on our website. So if you're not in New York and don't have that nexus that you need, please take a look or give us a call, and we can help you find the right organization.
Oh, wonderful. So thank you very much, Katie. I wish we had a lot more time, but I think we're done with our little time slot here. And so, you know, thank you so much. It's been great to hear about VLA. It's tremendous. Thank you to Nikuchi, and thank you to everyone at the Academy. Thank you to our New York chapter. Thank you to everyone for tuning into this conversation. And take care, stay well, and be productive. Bye. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.